Welcome everybody to Rad Pod and Chill. Yeah, are we here? Are we live? Are we live? That's a miracle. I hear a bunch of echoes, but whatever. Jim's all fuzzy, but whatever. We'll figure this out. I do want to start with some breaking news. I did just learn that essentially our show's mascot, Quincy from Chicago, a pug, our very dear friend Martin Scheel, who is our really our follow the money guy, our financial correspondent. Quincy was just given the news that he only has possibly days, at the most weeks, to live because Quincy's up there. So I just want our beautiful audience to send good and loving messages. There's Quincy to the Scheel family. Just FYI, Quincy's surrounded by love from all the family members. And if a miracle does not happen and we do lose Quincy, we are going to have an Irish Zoom wake. So I just wanted to start there because we view Quincy as a member of this show, and so do our friends and fans. So
by a long shot, our most frequent canine contributor.
yes, yeah. I just got a message from Marty. So in any case, all your love and support is very valued, and we will keep you posted on this sad day. But again, this is a pug that's contributed a lot. So away we go, guys. So it's been a minute. I hope everybody had a good 4th. As you know,
I mean,
spent some.
I'm just going to say the biggest news in the last 10 days is definitely that Quincy is
Quincy is unwell, and that makes me sad.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm just saying it has been a consequential 10 days.
Yes, it has been a consequential 10 days. It is worth noting that Martin Scheel is a forensic financial guy, and Quincy got his name from Marty's nickname, which was Quincy, named after the show. I think it was a Jack Klugman show.
Jack Klugman show. It was about a medical examiner, and I loved that show when I was a kid.
A lot of news. I figured we'd start with something personal, make sure everybody had a good, safe 4th. I don't know what's going on. There's a lot of click clanking. What do you have? Some sort of, maracas band, maracas band going on?
Oh, sorry. No, I was trying to get some shatter.
Oh.
When you're doing your drug, you're
Look, somebody's got to smoke joints around this motherfucker.
All right.
Well, me.
It ain't gonna be me. It ain't gonna be me. I spent some time in my happy place over the 4th in Joshua Tree, and that was very, very lovely. And I wish to go back as soon as possible. I love Joshua Tree, and that is really all the fluff. Not that Quincy's breaker is fluff, but there has been a lot of news. I want to start with something that's on my mind because I think it pertains to Jim's. Jim has many fronts on this war, and they all pretty much go to the same place. But in the enormity of the messaging around Sound of Freedom, which again, Hi-Fi and I months ago investigated the money behind it, and it was all very sus. And Jim, of course, has been at the forefront of exposing what's going on there. But what concerns me is that when people are under undue influence, I believe that they wish to believe lies. They do not seem so willing to hear the truth that we are pushing. And for me, that was a realization that hit me yesterday, that it's like that junkie that needs more of whatever it is they're getting. So my big thinking going into 2024 is we have to hold the line on who we haven't lost, and really start there. So that's what I wanted to say. It's not upbeat, but it's been on my mind. Jim?
Well, you're gonna have to uh, stand back for a second because I feel a TED Talk coming on
Okay.
right now about this movie because it's important. So if you are somehow unaware of the film The Sound of Freedom, it is a film that was shot in 2018, that was invested in early on, had to gain on by a bunch of people, including Tony Robbins, who is accused of being a sexual predator himself and who is a business partner of Eric Prince, in case you didn't know that. Also, the son of Carlos Slim, who is the richest man in the world.
Before you move on from Eric Prince, I just want to interject his relationship with George Nader. I've been investigating that going back, and George Nader, for decades, was a known uh, sexual assaulter of youth and had done prison time prior to him joining and, being a member of the, one of the Trump advisors. So I'm pointing that out because of the subject matter of the film.
Yeah, I mean, these. So what I mean, Mike Flynn is now training people to go after these psychopathic pedophiles who Mike Flynn defines as liberal Democrats who criticize his movie. Literally, like literally, that's what's going on here. So Sound of Freedom was funded by those people, also funded, as I found out, thanks to some concerned parents in Rockwood School District, Missouri, who was funded by a guy named Fabian Mara, who also funds something called Sugar Daddy, Sugar Baby parties that are exactly what you think. And not only that, his sugar baby got elected to the Rockwood School District. And what she did before she was on the Rockwood School Board was, and there's video on my tweets of her grooming there's no age limit on this thing at all, women and girls, into sugaring, which is the process of convincing an old rich man to give you money for sex. So these two people are called by the residents, or some of the residents, I should say, of this school district, the Jeffrey and Ghislaine of the Rockwood School District. No, first of all, no school district should have a Jeffrey and Ghislaine, right? So again, the guy who's funding that, all the grooming and the sugaring and stuff, funded Sound of Freedom, along with Tony Robbins and the son of the richest man in the world, Carlos Slim. And so it is funded by incredibly bad actors. It is starred in by Jim Caviezel, who is deeply, dangerously, savagely brainwashed by QAnon. Like, he's really very, very robotic in a way that seems to indicate very serious damage. And it is based on the supposed exploits of a guy named Tim Ballard, who has an operation called Operation Underground Railroad that is roundly, consistently, and completely rejected by every legitimate child organization that combats child trafficking. There have been multiple exposés about the fact that this guy basically creates these situations and then sells tickets, literally sells the raid experience where you can go out and rescue little girls from Mexico or whatever. And if there's an article in Slate came out a couple of years ago about how it was all fucking LARP. It was pretend. It was just drama. It's like some kind of specialized horror house just for you, right? So that's the guy that this movie is based on. So you've got child traffickers and accused sexual predators funding the film. You've got a deeply damaged QAnon victim starring in the film, and then the supposed lead dude is a guy who basically spends all of his time profiting from child trafficking while never actually doing anything about it, and in fact hurting the cause in a very, very serious way. Tim Ballard, after I think I calculated over 10 million views on Twitter from this guy about this organization and this movie, stepped down from his own fraudulent child trafficking firm because even they think he is too toxic. So
what is?
All of that said, let me land this plane here. Listen, millions of people have seen this film, whether we like it or not, whether I like it or not, whether you like it or not, right? You're going to know lots of people who've seen this movie and are suddenly deeply concerned about child trafficking. That is a normal reaction to a psychological weapon, to people who've been traumatized intentionally by a movie that is designed to upset them and strike a very deep chord in people who care about kids, especially parents, right? So it's well designed to do that. The problem is that it points that pain, that anger, and that concern in the wrong direction to the wrong people. At the end of the movie, you get to send your money to exactly the wrong people. So what's important, and I'm landing it here, if you know somebody who's seen this film and is concerned about child trafficking, don't try and tell them, it's just a stupid QAnon movie and you shouldn't care about child trafficking, because that will make you seem like some kind of crazy person to them, right? Because they've just seen this thing that's really scared them. So you need to tell them child trafficking is real. It is one of the closest thing to true evil on planet Earth. But if you're going to do something about it, if you're going to give people money, especially, vet them first. Very, very hard. Make sure you cross-reference it with a lot of different people. Do not trust some Hollywood producer with something this important.
So there's a bigger story here, unfortunately, that you pointed out, that this is functioning like a Pizzagate narrative on steroids 2.0, with Joe Biden in the role of Hillary Clinton. So essentially, this is part of an operation designed to, just in time for the 2024 election, bring on more venom and suspicion toward the Democratic Party. It's not organic. And I say that as somebody who produced stories on human trafficking for years, interviewing victims, parents, law enforcement, following the money often leading to the mob. And I've said for closing in on 7 years that so much of the pain of our time is cover for human trafficking. This film, as you just noted, is pointing people in the wrong direction once again. And I don't know if you can say it any better than that, but I think when you frame it as part of a bigger operation to peel off voters in 2024.
Let me shorten it down to 2 words: American ISIS. So I'm saying that very, very specifically, because what ISIS does is threatens your kids with infidels of a different color. That's the whole thing. That's the whole game, right? Is they're coming for your children. They're gonna, eat them or rape them or whatever the fiction is, right? They're coming for your kids. And if you don't take these extreme actions to protect them, you're a failure as a parent. You're a failure against your race, right? Your failure against your religion, whatever it is that they want to define as your religion, right? They are using the same tactics that were used by ISIS to radicalize people online and in the real world. And there's a reason for that. The reason for that is because all of this shit comes from stuff that was learned in Afghanistan and Iraq and other places around the world by Americans directly in contact with ISIS. So when you're thinking about this and the people who are going into these movie theaters, right? This is one giant red pill. We've talked about this many times before. It's a red pill. It's designed specifically to traumatize people, dissociate them, and then propose a false solution, right? So you're in a terrible, crazy trauma of this movie for 2 fucking hours, and then right at the end, Jim Caviezel comes with his Passion of the Christ tones, and then points you at a website that is going to send your money to fucking Eric Prince or whoever, right? Like, just realize that the people behind it are evil, even if the feeling that is comes up in other human beings in some ways, okay, there's more understanding about child trafficking. That's okay, that's good, but not when it's being weaponized to target people. So again, I will say one last time, Mike Flynn is using this film, specifically this film, to recruit people to an event in Florida where he's going to train people, in his words, train people to go after psychopathic pedophiles, which he defines as any color, any shape, any size, any political persuasion. In other words, I, Mike Flynn, am going to tell you who the pedophiles are, and then I'm going to train you to go after them. So if you care about these kids that you saw in this movie, you better come to my terrorist training camp so you can go and get some pedophiles. That's where this is going. It's going to literally American ISIS, where he's training people to go after his enemies.
So this is all incredibly dangerous. I think it's really important that we're going to have Dr. Stephen Hassan on in a couple of weeks, so we can learn how to better talk to family members who are seeing this film and who are, affected by it. But again, how the outcome and where they're being pointed to is the problem, not that they have empathy toward children in this very, terrible and cruel, trafficking problem that is a real problem. It's simply that this film, again, is designed to for different motivations.
Well,
and I think
it's also specifically, it's a tactic, right, to set up something like this and then say, oh, you don't like this movie, you're obviously
that's where I was going with it. That's where I was going
I've
with
been
it.
called a pedo, I'm not kidding, thousands of times over the last week, because I've been quite thoroughly criticizing this movie, and a lot of people don't like it. They think it means that I'm pro child trafficking, which is the exact opposite. What I want is for people to care about actual child trafficking, not fascist fantasies of child trafficking that are designed to target people.
I don't know if Hi-Fi wants to jump in, but my bigger concern, again, I'm always trying to think about who's being hurt the most and where we can be most helpful, is that we've lost the ability in the US to have nuanced conversations. Everything has to be, uh, everybody has to sort of be hit over the head with slogans. So Jim having the courage to call out the motivations of this film that was funded by nefarious characters earns him a title that I'm not going to repeat because it's truly awful. I trying to point out extremist and authoritarian tactics through the work that I do, I am brandished as a communist or whatever. And so the problem we have, the inability to have,
or you're a conservative, you're a secret libertarian,
or yes, or whatever, too right for the left, the left for the whatever. So whatever it is, but my point is that because we don't have a shared narrative of truth in America, and because we can't have nuanced conversations anymore, everything is boiling down to just these slogans where people are being completely, their minds are being limited by just this sort of.
I have something for this.
Thank
I
you,
have something for this, and this is what I have. Confusionism, which is what we talked to Paul Mason about. And it didn't come up. Dang it. All right, so I broke the video. But confusion.
That was pretty cool, though.
I know. I had like a smoke thing, and I had some.
You had a smoke thing, all right. But no, I
hold on a second, Heidi. Hold on.
That's the fog of unknowability. I love it. I get it. I get it.
But confusionism is when you intentionally engage in causing confusion in your observers, right? And the reason you do this is to prevent objective analysis of what's going on. All right. That is Confusionism, not Confucianism, no, Confusionism. And what Paul Mason told us was we have a lot of that going on. We have the gray zone and Mate and RFK Jr. is a Democrat, and I mean there's so much ridiculousness happening right now that it has to be obvious to people. I'm not sure why they don't see it. But one of the things I wanted to bring up was Mike Flynn's tweet about cuties and the Wojaks. Can I bring that up? Do you mind? Because I think that's really important. He's comparing the movie Cuties and Democrats going, oh, it's great, to them freaking out about Sound of Freedom, obviously equating both with pedophilia. But then he draws people to his website and he's quoting Kevin Sorbo. It's an organized information attack upon people, and it's exposing them to 4chan memes, white supremacist memes, right? And it's labeling Democrats as the problem, and it's.
Can I add to that?
Please.
So listen, if you go to his website, what you're going to find is a bunch of whitewashed bios for the top Pizzagate propagandists on planet Earth. Yeah. Literally, the of all time Pizzagate propagandists are the people who are running Mike Flynn's PSYOP. So, for example, Liz Crokin tweeted out a thing that's got like 500,000 views on it or something. That is a bullet list of all the Hillary Clinton pedo and Podesta spirit cooking WikiLeaks Pizzagate fiction. Boom, boom, boom. This is what they're not going to tell you in the mainstream media, right? This is literally the person who's going to be teaching you how to go after psychopathic pedophiles, and is going to be explaining to you who the psychopathic pedophiles are.
Wow. Wow.
Like, so we got well, that's the board of directors. So Laura, I guess they got Laura on there recently. So Laura Logan has been doing Eric Prince propaganda for like 2 decades. Tracy Diaz, right there, was the general manager of QAnon for the first 6 months until she fucked up and told Donald Trump on camera, and then they had to replace her.
She must have been proud. She must have been proud of her work, or
well,
she would have been bragging.
So Tracy is interesting because she was right next to to Guccifer. So her specialty was literally getting messages from Guccifer, who was a GRU cutout, according to like the Republican
Senate report,
right? literal Kremlin cutout. She was decoding the emails from Guccifer that were hacked by the fucking Russian government, again according to Republicans. In 2016, which was then used. All of that shit was used in order to create a bunch of bullshit that then Comey used to reopen her emails.
It's a nightmare. I mean, that's just all you can say. It's
literally
a nightmare.
The people responsible for stealing the election through Pizzagate propaganda are the people who are going to train you at the paramilitary training camp in Florida how to go after pedophiles who happen to be liberal Democrats who look like me.
So what's not funny about that is that I feel like, once again, we're not learning anything. And how we solve this is by learning. And in 2014, when Russia obfuscated what was happening in Ukraine when they invaded Ukraine, and America, again, was having a different conversation, you would think in 2016 we would have been better prepared for the assault on our democracy, and we weren't. And then here we are now approaching 2024, and in 2023 we are in deep peril, and they are using the same tactics with the same people. The only thing that I wanted to bring up is that the only way that information warfare works is if it evolves. So rather than doing the exact same tactics that were deployed in 2016, now the message comes through mainstream entertainment. So
sorry,
it's not.
I was catching. I was banning a troll. Sorry if
that's okay. And I'm literally like choking on my vitamin C spiked ginger tea. So yeah, I just think it's.
I'm trying to figure out where I put the damn Confusionism video.
That's okay.
You buried it under all the smoke.
We're going to hear from Paul Mason in a minute, but I just want people to be alert that we know the cycle, right? We know the cycle. Despair is the enemy of action. When we see all these different fronts that we have to fight, we know that ultimately this is all about throwing the 2024 election to Trump or JFK Jr. or whatever Botnick has the best shot.
Can I bring up something funny about that? About JFK, RFK. So you know who loves Cornell? So by the way, we haven't brought up Cornell West and RFK Jr. Yeah, guess who's the biggest fan? Was like, I can't believe all the mainstream press doesn't like Cornell West and RFK Jr. Edward fucking Snowden from his home in Siberian
or wherever,
where like maybe hanging out with Tara Reid, I don't know, is over there endorsing fucking RFK Jr. and Green Party member Cornel West, who, by the way, do you know who Cornel West's campaign manager is? I
Ted
forget.
Divine.
No, it's worse.
Am I close?
No, it's as bad. Well, it's in there, but even worse, more Botnick.
More
Paul
about it?
Manafort. Paul Manafort.
This is Dream Party, baby. Jill fucking Stein.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
so who attended the RT dinner with Lieutenant General retired Michael Flynn.
Indeed, with our favorite General Mike Flynn.
This goes back to
they were both sides of the horseshoe.
This goes back to tactics evolving. They're going to be delivering the same objectives through different messengers coming from the left. People who were previously very well respected, and the tactics are changing. Before I had my ginger tea cough attack, I was saying that it's different now. Instead of the message being delivered through online chat rooms, which I'm sure will still be used. Now it's on the big screen in a Hollywood, sleeper movie. Now, Jim, you managed to dismantle it over the weekend, uh, and I know that it's had an impact because obviously, if Ballard's stepping down and maybe more people are going to be aware. But the problem is, going back to my original thesis, we have millions and millions of people who wish to believe a lie, so many of them still in the MAGA cult, so many not realizing that MAGA is a Russia operation, so many of them not realizing that in 2016, when our country was attacked through the Internet Research Agency, that was a Russian military operation, the same person in charge of Wagner, which is a Russian military backed outfit. And so, again, I wish to be able to reach these people and tell them that their minds are being manipulated, but they don't want to hear the message. All I can think of doing is trying to prevent more people from the invasion of the body snatchers. Boomer.
We're in the world's on fire. I know everybody on this screen knows it.
Yeah.
Most people watching this know it, but what they don't really understand is how quickly the fire is going to come to them.
Yeah.
And I think for let's go back to it. Let's leave one message to the viewers, anybody involved in American politics. There must be a movement and a political leadership that fights back in the information and hybrid war that Trump and Putin are waging against your democracy. It's not about waiting for primaries or delivering jobs. Great those things are, jobs, infrastructure. It's about somebody has to grasp the nettle and lead the fight back.
And I just want to point out, Paul Mason is an investigative reporter. He wrote How to Stop Fascism. He is, as Jim says, one of our so metal guests. But Paul has quite the ability to cut right through and get right down to the where it really matters. And I just want to say that those of us who have entire divisions of these various online abuse armies dedicated to us include people like Paul Mason. And I just want to say, I think we're in very good company.
I saw I saw a tanky professor today accuse Paul of working with the intelligence agencies, and I'm just like,
oh, dude, the Gray Zone did a whole special report about him being MI 11. He's so MI 6 and he's like MI 12. I mean, it's all very fucking stupid and whatever.
Yeah, fucking MI 42.
Paul came up with Confusionism. He also said one of my favorite things about it's one of the worst things, but it's brilliant, which is that about the American Constitution. The First Amendment gives us the right to speak about genocide, and the Second Amendment gives us the right to carry it out. that is the message that is not actually what the Constitution says, but that is how it's been twisted over the last fucking how 50 fucking years by a bunch of fascists who have intentionally broken our brains of the ability to read English. Things like about a well-regulated militia and stuff. Things that are right in the fucking words that we just there's a comma or some shit, so it doesn't mean anything. It's all insane and stupid and it's but it's really important because I think ultimately we're going to have to do a lot of retrofitting.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's an earthquake in your goddamn building and it's falling over or some shit. You got to come in with some steel rebar and fucking build that shit back up. And part of what Paul was talking about in this episode, which I really liked and which I agree with entirely, is that young people need to start leading, need to start getting the fuck out in front, and then old shitheads like us, the three of us on here, and probably most of the people listening to us, need to get in line, right? Get behind them because we don't fucking matter anymore. We just need to get out of the goddamn way and give them the tools to work
and
with.
Support them.
Not doing right now.
So I would like to, on that subject, direct everybody to RadPod's episode with Nancy McLean. You can search all the episodes. It's probably somewhere in the 20s or 30s. Nancy McLean wrote Democracy in Chains. And she talks about how, I would say probably the most important reason why we have to work our asses off between now and 2024 is because if we can get rid of the QAnon party in Washington and we are able to maintain democratic control, we can then work on the deep structural reform that we need in America so we don't have another authoritarian leader in America. That is not what we were founded on or for. We actually defended ourselves against a king. That is not what we are. So I just bring that up. In order to have hope that this experiment continues, we have to work very hard between now and 2024. And we have to make sure that we are running candidates everywhere. As David Pepper taught us, so many of the goons that we are being held hostage to got there because they didn't even have candidates running against them. And that has to change.
Yeah, well, I mean, who wants to run against anyone in this climate is the problem, right? Like, why in the fuck would anyone in their right mind run for school board right now, right? The people who are running for school board are people who want to destroy the school board because they've made it so hard and toxic. So I agree with that. I agree that yes, we have to focus on the 24 election. However, in the fucking meantime, we cannot stop putting pressure on these people to get these people behind bars, right? It really looks like Jack Smith, and I know you're not saying different, but Jack Smith looks like he's making some moves. In the meantime, this guy, Mike Flynn, right, doing FBI, DOJ, and me, is out here labeling political enemies as pedophiles and is going to train them at a paramilitary white supremacist camp with a bunch of the most dangerous psychological operators on planet Earth. These Pizzagate people, when I joke about them being OG Pizza, they know what they're doing. They know how to damage people.
Yes.
And so, if you recall, we found out through some damn good reporting by the Washington Post, which is a weird sentence to say these days, that the FBI basically blocked, and the DOJ allowed the FBI to block any investigation into Donald Trump or his associates above Proud Boy and Oath Keeper for like 2 years. And the only reason I'm convinced that they had to deal with it is that people would not shut the fuck up about it. And we have to keep that pressure on. We have to make sure that all these guys, Bannon, fucking Prince, Flynn, all of these people who are at the head of this snake
Yes.
need to go to prison, and we cannot let our foot off the gas just hoping to vote our way out.
On that note, my sources, I have some federally connected sources tell me that these particular sources are expecting indictments soon, Friday, maybe Tuesday, related to J6. If so, we will stop whatever we're doing and we'll jump on and we'll tell you what we know. I bring that up, and I believe it's true because of the behaviors of these people. I believe the traders are getting restless. I think that's why they're pulling out all the stops and doing all this crazy making right now, because I think they know that they're going to be indicted, and there's probably going to be many indictments. And I want to point something out. These guys are not masters of the universe. They may have been well funded by the transnational mob, but they are not masters of the universe. Eric Prince sued a reporter for The Intercept on a story he didn't like, and a judge said, nah, and kicked it out of court. Eric Prince got indicted by Austria for some arms trafficking with a Libyan warlord, and it has been indicted over that in Austria, as I said. So I just want to point out that, where they may have thought that they were above the law because they had Bill Barr, the fixer, backing them, the 2020 election didn't go the way that they thought it was going to go, no matter how many times they tried to manipulate that. And so we're going to find out shortly if we have the kind of moxie that pursues, throwing the full pressure of the law against traders in America.
Can I just say that one of the things that is really failing us throughout this entire whatever episode of American history, call it what you will. What did Jeff Charlotte call it? The Trump epoch. The media has failed us.
The Trumpocene. The
Trumpocene, right? The media has failed us terribly, and Paul has something very important to say about that.
It's the abstraction. We are fighting a conscious abstractifying tendency on the left to make this all about a place called Ukraine that has no concreteness. Whereas for us, those of us who are engaged with it, I'm afraid it has too much concreteness. I see things on my timeline I shouldn't really want to see. I don't want anybody else to see. It's as soon as it's concrete, it will matter. So that's the first thing. In terms of the wider public, I think it's the fault of the media. If the US media cannot make concrete the human story of a people suffering no genocide and certainly crimes against humanity, then it's failed. And I've seen great US reporters, Richard Engel of I think it's CNN, made some fantastic videos right at the beginning. But in the end, if it's only the same video over and over again, we run, we're out of breath, some explosions happen, bang. Well, maybe when the next liberation of a city happens, it could be Donetsk, it could eventually be Melitopol or even Mariupol. Look them up on a map. Make sure your readers and viewers understand where they are, what a big deal it would be if one of those cities were to be liberated. When we find out what's happening in those cities, any American network that does not lead on that is criminal, because what has happened in those cities is mass death, mass deportation, child theft, rape on a mass industrial scale. We need to know. If the liberation of Belsen, the concentration camp, had been third item on the news for one day, our view of what the Holocaust was would have been very different.
I think that That kind of
He's,
says it all right
he's
there. The
brilliant.
media has just, yeah.
He's brilliant. Well, we are the media now. Paul Mason is the media now. Byline Times is the media now. So that's the difference. The Substack readers, the Substack reporters and writers are the media now. We can't hope that corporate media is going to change anytime soon and save us. All we can do is hope that we continue to box above our weight and have an impact. And that is one of the things that I am seeing. People like Jim are willing to be called names by thousands of Votnik accounts in order to make the point that people's minds are being manipulated in a way that we've seen
Right.
before at a bigger level. Yes.
And I am willing to call thousands of Vatnik accounts names.
Willing to. That's your raison d'etre.
Sometimes.
So just some brief defamation news, not mine. So yes, Eric Prince had his defamation lawsuit dismissed with prejudice, which means it was thrown the fuck out because it was dumb and it didn't work at all, and the judge was like, bullshit. If there's any merit to it at all, they don't do that. So that is good. Also, Mike Flynn and both were ruled by a judge that they must testify in a defamation suit against.
Hold on. Are you breaking up on your end too, Hi-Fi, or just on my end?
Both.
Okay. So just start over, Jim, without moving, because what you're saying is really important. This is a Smartmatic, right? Let's hear that again.
Yes. So Mike Flynn was where was it? Yes. So Mike Flynn and Steve Bannon are both required to testify in the Smartmatic defamation lawsuit. So if you recall, the Dominion lawsuit is a separate multi-billion-dollar lawsuit that Kremlin vampire Rupert Murdoch settled for $1 billion, but still has Smartmatic and some others to go. So it's all of this actual defamation that Mike Flynn's been doing. I don't know if that looks good to a judge. It's weird.
It's very, very important. Very important what you just brought up, that he has to testify in this, because we know that Fox had to admit that it lied and pay out almost $1 billion for promoting the lies of those in Trump's orbit, which they clearly did not believe themselves, according to internal records. But I think it's very important to go back to what the subject matter was of the story that Eric Prince sued over, that was then dismissed by that judge. It's very, very important to go back to, according to this Intercept report, Eric Prince had offered his services to Wagner, again, according to the report, Wagner being an arm of the Russian military, which meant that at the time, Prince, who was an advisor to the Trump administration, would be actually working directly for Russia. So I bring this up because, once again, I read all the Mueller report, and Russia was real, and it's still very real. And all of this goes back to what was happening in that time. So I'm revisiting a lot of this in a series I'm writing called American Monster, and I'm revisiting Paul Manafort, and I'm revisiting Roger Stone and what they were doing during this period of time, because it's very important for those people who are just sort of waking up to the reality of what happened in 2016, that there are Americans who are still free at the moment, who have been traitors to democracy and have been actively participating in the overthrow of our government and other governments around the world.
Yeah, I think that's the thing a lot of people really still don't get to this day, that even with Brazil, even with the plot in Germany, even with, AFD gaining popularity, even with all these things happening, Syria, Libya, Mali, right? We know Wagner like basically massacred a village in Mali. And Putin came out and said, yeah, Wagner's an extension of the Russian government. So I'm not sure what the fallout on war crimes is going to be there. And the question is, can the world collect when Putin is found guilty for these things?
I think that's one other point that Jim made, going back to where we started this hour on Sound of Freedom, that when we talk about pointing people in the wrong direction, Putin has been indicted for trafficking children in the tens of thousands out of Ukraine. So that's a real thing that's happened. Does this movie point people at Putin for trafficking children? No, it doesn't.
It's going to be a lead-in for a movie that Mel Gibson is making about child trafficking in Ukraine and the true story. And really, it's going to be a psyop to lessen support for Ukraine. Ultimately.
Not if we make enough noise, it won't, because nobody will touch it.
It's going to try to, but yeah.
So it's a 4-part. He claims it's a 4-part docu-series that is being produced by the aforementioned accused sexual predator Tony Robbins. That is about, I shit you not, Ukrainian children being trafficked to Poland, to Russia's next target in NATO. Happens to be the place that fucking Ukrainian kids are getting trafficked to. Isn't that weird how that happens, right? Tim Ballard said that at guess where? A Utah Council for National Policy meeting. He said the next film is, he also revealed that The Sound of Freedom, the final edit, was by the aforementioned anti-Semitic abuser, Mel Gibson.
So I believe if people like us and the allies that we have who are global apply enough pressure, there will be no additional productions involving these people, because the scrutiny on them will be enough where the funding will disappear. So that is how this works, and that is why lawfare is used to try to silence reporters and activists and critics of people who are engaged in this type of destructive narrative. One thing we talked about with Paul Mason is that where Russia has been successful is in psychological warfare. Where it's been less successful has been in kinetic warfare. So I think that since it's inexpensive, we're going to see much, much more of it. And one of the concerns I have is that when Ruth Ben-Ghiat, the nation's foremost expert on Italian fascism, teaches her students about the history of fascism, the 100-year history, she will say that if we were in an authoritarian country and we were sitting in a classroom, 25% of the people here would be informants. I think that people have to get used to the fact that information warfare is cheap, and that they have to get used to the fact that there are a lot of bad actors in the real world and on Twitter. And if you're confused about that, I invite you to go to our friend Pekka's votniksoup.com. He's made it very easy to look through all the different names and search different people to find out who are pro-Kremlin actors and how they're delivering the message. He also now has a YouTube channel called Soup Central, where he is starting to do the reveal. And the first Soup Central was fascinating because it was based on a kind of a failed theater kid who suddenly one day emerges as a pro-Russian blogger doing all the talking points. And how we know he was being paid by the Russians? His ex-girlfriend ratted him out as being paid by the Russians. So we have that problem here in America as well. And we've been a bit naive and a bit slow to recognizing it. But it's real. I don't know what percentage of what we see on Twitter has been affected by this, but I think that we've been woefully underestimating the numbers. And one more fact on that, we had Brent Allpress on the show a few weeks ago, and the CNP issued its own study, the Council for National Policy, and they determined that the 2016 election, Twitter was pivotal in throwing the election to Trump, who was very active in 2016 on Twitter. Why? The Internet Research Agency's troll abuse squad from St. Petersburg, which was being amplified by those in Trump's orbit. And what did the CNP learn? That in 2020, Twitter actually was influential and had an impact on the Biden campaign. What are we seeing in 2023? A whole bunch of pro-Kremlin actors in all different facets of professional careers, all for the same objective, to ensure a Kremlin win for the presidency in 2024.
That's about it.
I just got one final thing to say.
You did it. We got a lot of those around.
Don't we just?
So,
good night, folks.
So wait. Don't leave anybody. Don't leave anybody without a way to cut through it. There's a lot of people you can follow to cut through Confusionism. Paul Mason being one of them. Give a shout out
Emma
to
Bryant.
Emma Bryant, another one. Brent Allpress being another one. Sharon Norris,
Charles
Zarina
Creel.
Zabriskie, Rad Pod, Jim Heidi Hi-Fi. Who else? Jackie Singh. There's a lot of people doing great work. I go to Michael McKay. He's leading my speakeasy on Sunday. I hope you guys join. There's a lot of people doing the work that cuts through Confusionism. So follow, support, do what you can. And one last thing, don't be bullied. Don't be bullied. I had a friend who protested at a Moms for Liberty event. They didn't like being protested against, and some of those Moms for Liberty are no longer in Moms for Liberty. So don't be bullied. Stand up for being empathetic, and that's the show.